nothing like living a simple life. Something out those aches and pains from working on the farm.
Hey guys, it's Eric, owner of Farpoint Farms here in the mountains of North Carolina. And tonight I want to show off a new toy, but before I start showing it off, I want to talk to you about why I got it. So, as you know from over the summer, I have gotten into solar projects, right? I built a 1200 watt solar generator for the house, and it's actually working great. In fact, well, I won't say it's working great. I had to pick up one new item for it, and I'll do a separate video on that, but I picked up a new rather high-end inverter for it because the one that I had was just flaky. Anyway, as a result of all that, and before all that, I was kind of playing with solar panel projects. I had a 50 watt foldable panel, and I made an emergency preparedness video talking about emergency comms and talked about it in specific. And it actually sits up on the roof, or it used to, here in the shop, and there's a little cheap charge controller like this one right here, and that thing powered a regular old-fashioned car battery. In fact, it was a car battery out of a car that was going to the junkyard, so it's an older battery, but it would work. And so I always had a topped-off 12-volt battery in case there was a power outage, so I could come out here and power up the radio equipment and use that. And so that's kind of how my dive into solar started. After that, I purchased that whole kit and built that whole kit this summer, put that thing together again, and it's been awesome. I run all the video editing, all the computers, all the stuff, recharging this camera that I'm filming this on, all that is now operated 100% off of solar. So it's been really cool to run about a third of my house off of solar power. And even in the winter, as long as I brush the snow off, it works pretty darn well. So my taste, my interest in solar continues. The other day, like a week or two ago, I was out at a flea market and I picked up, and I made a video of this separately. I don't know if it'll get posted before or after I post this one, but it's a Ryobi charger. Like it takes the battery, but you put the Ryobi 1 Plus unit on top of it, and it's like a 150 watt inverter that operates off those 18 volt 1 Plus batteries. Super cool. So I was thinking, oh man, you know, I could do this thing and I'll have it at, you know, I'm trying to maybe consider building a small camper, or like a really small camper, and I wanted to have some power in it, right? So I've got like a heater buddy for heat if I wanted to camp in the wintertime, but having a little power, running some LED lights, a couple things like that, I thought that'd be pretty darn cool. But how do I recharge it, right? There's really no way to recharge it. So that is a really cool unit, and I'm going to use it for stuff around the house. In fact, we've already been using it a lot in the last couple weeks. But it really got me thinking about, like, what would I use if I was going to build a camper, if I wanted to have an emergency comm setup that was a rechargeable all-in-one. I want to get rid of the car battery, I want to get rid of a separate inverter, a separate charge controller. What would I get? So that all leads to this. This is the Geartist all-in-one. It's a portable power supply. It puts AC out, DC out, USB out, and it can be recharged through regular home circuitry, like plug it in and charge it that way. But it also can be recharged from solar. It has a solar charge controller in it. And so I went looking for these things. Jackery makes one. There's 200 or 300 other brands, to be quite honest with you. And I reached out to several of these companies. This company got back to me and said, hey, we'd be honored to have you take a look at this product. Hopefully you'll like it. And so what I'm going to do is tonight I'm going to open this thing up. I'm going to show you how it operates and functions. And then I'm going to be building this camper, or at least I'd like to. It's one of my winter, you know, pet projects that I'd like to try to get done. And so this is going to be an integrated part of it during the camping part of it, right? I'm going to run some lights, a fan, and that's about it, right? And it'll recharge off of a 100 watt solar panel that I intend to build into this camper that I'm making. And when I say camper, I'm talking about camper cap, but it's kind of like going to be a bloated camper cap, something a little larger. And surprisingly, this cap is going to go on the Rabbit truck, so that makes it a very small camper. Anyway, that's what it's going to be used for. Then, in the other times, the battery that I have now, it's a 2012 battery. It is definitely getting on in years. It doesn't really hold that big of a charge. I do have now a 100 watt solar panel that lives permanently on the roof here and runs down, feeds a small charge controller, the one I showed you, and charges that battery. So I'm going to get rid of the charge controller. No, I'm going to actually split the system. I'm going to have the charge controller. I'm still going to maintain that battery for emergency uses, but I'm also going to have that solar split off and charge this. So this thing will always be ready in case of an emergency to use to power up this equipment or to power anything really. This is a nice portable unit. So let me get the camera and I'm going to reposition it straight down the table. We'll unbox this. I'll talk about what it can and cannot do. Maybe we'll try plugging it into a few things, and that'll wrap up part 1 of this. Part 2, sometime in the spring or over the summer, when we get the camper built, I'll show you how I integrated it into this tiny, tiny, tiny home that I am attempting to build right now. Let's do it. Here we go. This is the box, and I'm just going to go ahead and open it up. Well, before I do that, 300 watts AC out. I believe on their website it was 400 watts max, so like you know, as far as like an instantaneous draw. But 296 watt hours. That's pretty good for such a compact unit. It uses those regular 1650. I can't remember what the number is, but the cells that, you know, you see all the rechargeable flashlights using, that's what's really going on inside of that, so that's kind of cool. As far as the output, it is a lithium-ion battery, 5 volts out at 2.1 amps on USB. Not really interested in USB powering things. I'm interested in DC out, so I can go up to 6 amps max. Why am I interested in that? Well, if I want to run a CB radio off of this thing, I want to be able to know that it's going to have 12 volt out. It does, and 6 amps should be fine to run a 5 watt CB radio. I wouldn't get into amplifiers. I wouldn't really try to run high-end ham equipment. Anything over, I would say, maybe 15 watts is probably going to be hurting this thing. So just to give you an idea there. More of USB stuff. It looks like there is a flashlight on board, which is kind of interesting. I'm not sure how useful I'll find that, but it's always nice to have that. Says it takes on DC voltage 6 to 7 hours to recharge. So if you plug this thing into a solar panel, you get decent sunlight, it's going to recharge in a day. What I'm really interested in checking on this is, can it operate while it's charging? That is going to be an important factor on whether this thing is the bee's knees for me. So we'll be playing with that later on too. It is pure sine wave, which is nice. Life cycle says, you know, 500 times, give or take. And I'm sure that's probably conservative. Those flashlight batteries usually last an awfully long time. Operating temperature, negative 50 degrees Fahrenheit to 140 degrees. I'm not thinking that's positively correct. Negative 50. And I'm not buying that. So anyway, we'll go ahead and open this thing up and check it out. Now, I have not opened this. I just got it in the mail, but I want to play with it and I want to show it off. So let's do that. Okay, I'm just going to take everything out of the box, and then we'll take a look at what's in all these smaller boxes here. Fairly well packed. Wow, it's pretty light. The wonders of lithium as opposed to lead acid are pretty wild. It's a little smaller than I thought it would be as well. I was kind of picturing something maybe the size of a good sized jump box. This is the size of a very small jump box, but works. All right, let's see. Okay, this looks like our just wall, plug-in wall charger, and 1.5 amps at 19 volts out. So this. Okay, let's see. There's the other end of our power cord. Cigarette lighter. Okay, so this does not have, no cigarette lighter output, so you'd have to plug into one of these and then do that. That's not that big a deal, just an extra step in the process. Less and less as time goes on do I have stuff that actually still hooks to a cigarette lighter anyway, but it's cool that they included that. And then this looks like a 12 volt charging cord. So that's kind of cool. Alright, so you can charge it off of 12 volts, you can charge it off of 120 with an converter, and we have an output. So that looks like that is what is going on here. As far as this thing, like I said, this thing, it doesn't weigh as much as I thought it would, honestly. And I guess I'm just so used to lead acid. This is the future, right? On this side, our DC in. So this input is where I'm going to be plugging solar panels into. So I've got a 100 watt solar. I'm going to split it. I just bought a pair of splitters. They're coming in the mail. I'll buy a splitter and it goes to that, and that way it'll charge both this and the battery. Of course, you got to realize once these things are topped off, that's it. They're just maintained. So 100 watts charging two separate things doesn't sound like a lot of solar power, But if you're not in a hurry to use either one of them, that's not a big issue. Now, still, I believe 100 watts could probably charge both a car battery and this in a single day if you gave it all day. So that's not bad. Again, I'm kind of curious to see if you're able to operate it while it's in charging mode, and that's going to be a big wonder. This back here looks like the flashlight. Yeah, okay, so I probably have to turn it on first, or maybe it needs to be charged, but that looks like our flashlight, and that's more of like a room light to me, but that's cool. On this side, one outlet with a plug, one regular outlet, and then down here we have our USB charging ports, and we have 2 DC outs plus a Type-C. So, not sure. I guess if you were charging phones or whatever, you know, you could recharge like a GPS unit, you could recharge a phone. What else goes off with GPS? Actually, these plugs nowadays, like my little GMRS handhelds, they have a charging base and it uses USB. So there's a lot of little electronics now that are using USB charging cables. So that's kind of cool that they included that. And then on the front here, this is where the money's at, I guess. We got just some indications here, pure sine. The model number G301. It is a Geartist. And then we have our on-off here. Okay, so this button here turns it on, and that must be in DC mode. So let's see if that light works now. Yep, there we go. Whoa, that's bright. Okay, so it actually has multiple levels. Oh, we have some emergency stuff. Anyone remember what that is? SOS, perhaps? Yeah, there we go, and then off. All right. So you have to have the power on in order to do that. It looks like it has a nice bar graph for power out, percentage left. And then let me go ahead and turn that off, and we turn this on. And now we see an AC out, so I imagine now this is powered up and ready to rock and roll. So 300 watts is not a small amount of power when you're talking about running the kind of stuff you would run when you're camping. Mostly lights for inside of a tent, perhaps a small fan. That's, you know, that's about it. Recharging some stuff. Can't really think of a whole lot else you would want to run while camping that you should be. I mean, obviously you could run a laptop, but you shouldn't be doing that if you're out in the great outdoors. But I mean, for like camping, for me, if I was going to take a long trip, which is what I'm planning on doing this summer, you would want that to be able to recharge batteries, recharge your other batteries, run a fan, run a laptop, so I could upload videos on the road or whatnot. So that's kind of cool. Hold that down, turn it back off. This side, like I said, looks like that's a fan for cooling system probably. And again, the whole thing is kind of light. Doesn't make any weird noises when you shake it. Oh, look at that, it's got some nice pads on the bottom to hold it in place. So, yeah. All right, I don't know if this will work, but I'm gonna give this a shot. I'm gonna plug this thing into a wall. Now, wait a minute, let's see here. Let's see. I'm going to plug something in here and power it up off of AC, and then I'm going to plug this thing into a wall and see if it continues to do it. So give me 1 second. Alright, as you can see, I've got it all set up. I've got the little clock radio over here. I've got this thing operating on AC out, and I've got my booster box here. I'm going to plug it in and see. I'm not too hopeful that this is going to play out. And this is, from all the research I've done, most of the models that I looked at, they didn't have the ability to both charge and operate equipment at the same time. Couldn't find any info on the Geartist, so I'm hoping that it will, but I'm not hopeful that it will, if that makes sense. So anyway, I'm going to plug it in, and let's see if it continues to stay powered up. Nope. So the second it switched over to charging mode, it shut power off. So in other words, if you want to charge this battery for a camper, during the daytime, you would have to be just in charge mode and not in operation mode. And that's kind of a bummer because, you know, 50 watts going in, 50 watts going out, and, you know, you could pretty much be operating it cleanly off the sun without discharging the battery. It's not the end of the world, certainly, but it is kind of a feature that I was really hoping the Geartist would have. No worries, though. I'm sure that I'll find plenty of use for it. So basically this will become my nighttime power source. I'll recharge it during the daytime. I'll do my work at night. And also, I mean, if you need to use it during the day, you simply unplug the solar and operate it and use it for an hour or whatever it is. And then when you get back on the road or get back to whatever you're doing, you plug the thing back into the solar and it continues charging. So again, it's not like it's the end of the world or anything, but it's just something you need to be aware of if you decide to buy one of these. So anyway, that's going to wrap it up for part 1. It'll be a while before part 2. There will be a part 2 because I am going to be building this thing as an integrated part of whatever little camper I end up creating. And if you're interested in those micro camper builds, well, stick around the channel, because as spring comes in and my engine work finishes up on that old 40-year-old truck, or 41-year-old truck now, I'll be working on a small micro camper so I can take this thing, maybe not all the way across country like I did 2 years ago, but maybe just up and down the East Coast or something like that. So stick around. And thanks to Geartist, also thanks to SevenFortyOne, a fellow YouTuber who did a review on one of these. And I reached out to him and said, hey, do you have a contact info for these folks? And he was kind enough to provide that to me. They were kind enough to send it to me. So both of them, I really appreciate it. I have reached out to many companies ever since I got into the solar stuff over the summer, and Geartist was the first to respond to me. So hopefully this will be the first of many reviews of these products. And who knows, maybe we'll be able to afford to give a few of these away to viewers as well. Till next time, my friends, take care.